Hi.
Hi. Well, I'm Vic, and I was Michelle's Girl Friday for about 70 days. 10 days, the last 10 days of October, when she decided to deploy to the steps, and then 6 to 12 hours a day for the next 40 days that she fasted, the 40 days and nights that she fasted that got the meeting with the governor. And some of the wonderful things that were accomplished through her efforts and the efforts of other folks as well are some wonderful relationships that have been established at the Capitol, particularly with the Capitol staff, the management at the Capitol, the state police at the Capitol, and who responded quite wonderfully when Reese, Michelle's partner, became violently ill and wound up going to the hospital. The state police actually stepped in to staff the steps while she was gone. The relationships that we built with them when they had to swallow the reality that the Constitution does in fact trump building policy has been made not as bitter pill for them by the way we've treated each other, and that's kind of where we're at now.
Here I am in front of the state capitol here in Salem. I'm out on the lawn in front. And I'm going to walk up here a little closer. I'm going to see if Michelle would like to talk to me a little bit about what she's doing down here in her protest to not send the Guard, the National Guard, to Iraq. It's a beautiful day out here. This is going to be a hard interview. Hi, I'll shake your hand there.
Thank
How are you doing?
I'm doing really good.
Good.
It's, I usually don't talk on camera after this hour because I'm 17 days fasting, and so if I get a little bit muddled, you'll know why.
I perfectly understand. I came actually just to sort of see, I've been intending to come down and see you.
Oh, great.
And
great.
I'm filming as Joe Anybody, and I'm trying to document the peace movement.
Thank you.
And you're working for peace.
Yes.
You're out here trying to stop the Guards from being sent to Iraq.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think they were just sent, weren't they?
Well, 140 of them.
140. And there's
out of
more.
3,500. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're supposed to send 3,500 altogether.
Okay, so you've been fasting for a while out here? How many days?
Well, the first fast that I commenced was November 1st, and that went all the way until December 10th when the governor finally agreed to meet with us.
Okay.
Myself, 2 National Guard soldiers and family members, as well as concerned citizens. And so I was fasting for that meeting to take place, and day 33 the governor sent staff and to attempt to reach an agreement where I would meet with his staff and with the general of the Oregon National Guard, Mike Caldwell. And I said that while we appreciated that meeting, and we were given that meeting, that I would still continue to fast until we actually got a chance to, these people had a chance to meet with him personally, that it seemed to me like the least he could do was address their concerns personally as the highest elected official in the state. It was a reasonable request, and so given what we're asking them to do yet again. So he agreed to that finally. On day 38, I had a brief meeting with just him and I and a couple of his aides.
Where at? Inside?
Inside the state library.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I met with him briefly, and he said that he wanted to know what exactly kind of questions we would be asking and what the purpose of the meeting was. So I filled him in, let him know that that was to address the concerns of deploying soldiers and family members and people who've been impacted by prior deployments. So anyway, he agreed to the meeting and gave me the meeting on day 40 of my fast, which wound up being on Universal Human Rights Day.
Oh.
And so, and at the meeting, he did address some of our concerns, although made it clear from the outset that nothing was going to change as a result of the meeting, and that he had no intentions of reversing his decision to not actively block the Guard deployment because he, is asserting that he doesn't have that authority, even though we know that it's.
Yeah, I just heard from the meeting in there that they do have the authority, don't they?
He very much has the authority, but it's a kind of a game of he said, she said.
Yeah.
I mean, when he makes public statements and his, staff makes public statements to the press, and that's what gets repeated over and over and over. Eventually, people will believe it, kind of like when you repeat,
yeah,
Saddam's responsible for 9/11 enough
yeah,
times.
just keep saying it.
Yeah, right, and then eventually it'll be true. He made some very telling comments, one being that when we brought up the illegality of the deployment, and he looked right at me and said, well, we haven't had a legal deployment since World War II. And that was his response. In other words, why start now?
Yeah,
which of course gave us a bunch more questions that, went unaddressed and unanswered. But the willingness to finally, sit down and talk to us about it was encouraging, as well as when we asked him how we could work together and how we could, stop this deployment that obviously no one wants, including himself, because he's made some very strong statements to the press that he finds the deployment to be offensive, and that it's what they're being asked to do is go in and be, basically cannon fodder, to do things the active duty military or active duty army doesn't want to do, and that he finds it very offensive, and has said that it's asking too much of these people and their families to ask them to do this again.
So he's saying that, huh?
He's saying that, yeah. And so we asked him, well, how can we work with you, since this is obviously your position? We'll remind you of your quotes here, and he said, well, you need to bring a lot more input from Oregonians on the issue.
Oh, we need more Oregonians talking like that. Then he'll.
Right. We need more Oregonian participation, more Oregonians registering their objections to the deployment. Mike Caldwell threw out a number of 1 million people. However, the general consensus is we believe that.
Now, Mike Caldwell, was he
general of the Oregon National Guard?
Oh,
he was
okay.
at the meeting on day 33. So. And I'm sorry.
Yeah. So no, I interrupted you, I guess. So that was your first meeting, though, right? The first meeting,
with Mike Caldwell. Mike Caldwell said the same thing when we asked Mike Caldwell, because Mike Caldwell stated that the deployment was inevitable. And I said, but excuse me, the only time anything is inevitable in a free country is if the people don't weigh in on the issue. And it's our intent to make sure that doesn't happen. He said, well, if you brought me 1 million people, well, when we spoke to the governor basically said the same thing, although he didn't use such an arbitrary number. He simply said that there needed to be basically critical mass, Oregonians registering their objections to the war.
Do you see that happening at all with the amount of signatures?
There's been a good amount of signatures. 7,100 were turned in, and I have been told by legislators and the governor himself, though, that that's not nearly enough in a state of 4 million people. And so there has to be, far more involvement. And so that's what we're trying to do here, and what the campaign to keep the Guard home has been doing, and that's, getting the word out to as many people as possible. And for me, that I commenced another fast. The day that we turned in those 7,100 signatures, I commenced another fast to bring in, asking people, please call, register your feelings about this, because we know the vast majority of Oregonians oppose this Guard deployment, and we know that, out of the 3,500, which is of course the largest deployment since World War II, that there's a large contingent of Guards people and their families who are very distressed by this. Out of the first 140 that were sent, 8 of them have been more than 4 times already. Yeah. 2 of them are on suicide watch, and those are just the numbers we have, let alone the people we don't know about who are suffering from these things, and whose stories we haven't heard. But the stories I have heard, it seems like, should more Oregonians hear these stories and know what's really going on behind the scenes, not to mention really take into consideration what this is going to cost our state, then it feels like people will step forward and do just a little bit. It just takes a little bit of effort. A phone call, a letter,
to let them know.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they keep track of those things. When I was fasting the first time, and the word got out via the media that I was fasting for meeting with the governor, I was told by someone who is well placed to have such information that on one day alone there were 1,500 telephone calls to the governor saying, meet with the people, what's the holdup here,
Yeah.
Just meet with them. So we know that these actions make a difference. We know that should enough people just pick up the telephone and.
So your second fast, is it to bring media attention, sort of to get people listening?
Yes.
And go, why is she out there doing that?
Yeah,
what is she doing this for?
Right.
And
exactly.
So you're sacrificing and suffering, probably. I can only imagine. But and it's to bring attention, right?